Lesson 11:9, Interior and Exterior Angles of Triangles. In this lesson, we're going to learn about finding the interior and exterior angle measures in a triangle. From example 1, they just want to remind you of a couple of things that you've learned in previous units or lessons. First of all, don't forget that the sum of the measures of the interior angles of a triangle is always 180 degrees. Now, we can use that measure along with the idea that we got from the last lesson where we had parallel lines cut by a transversal, and we can use that to show how we have congruent angles both inside and outside of that triangle. Okay? So let's first take a look at the try it question. This try it question just relies on your knowledge of the sum of the measures inside a triangle. So take a look at the triangle that you're given. It has measures of 68 degrees and 40 degrees, and then there is no measure in the angle, the third angle of that triangle in the vertex. So the question is, what is that unknown angle measure? Well, we can use the idea that the sum of the measures of those angles is 180. So far, I have a 68 degree angle and a 40 degree angle, and that total is 108 degrees. So if the sum of the measure of the angles inside a triangle is 180, then I can use subtraction in order to find the measure of the missing angle. In this case, it must be 72 degrees. Now consider the convince me question. Could a triangle have interior angle measures of 23, 71, and 96? Explain. Well, the first thing that we need to do is look at the sum of those three angles. And what do you get when you add them up? You get 190. Is that possible? And the answer is no. This could not make a triangle. The angle sum must be 180. Now let's consider example 2 and the vocabulary terms that are introduced here. In the diagram, the measure of angle 2 is 68 degrees, and the measure of angle 3 is 42 degrees. What is the measure of angle 4? Well, when you look at the picture, angle 4 is outside the triangle. So we need to use the relationships that we know about the measure of the interior angles of a triangle and the idea of supplementary angles in order to get the measure of angle 4. So in this case, I can add together the 68 degree angle and the 42 degree angle to get a 110 degrees total. That's the measure of angle 2 plus angle 3. Now, these two angles are called remote interior angles. They are non-adjacent, meaning not next to, the angle on the exterior of the figure, which in this case is angle 4. Okay, so the exterior angle is angle 4. The remote interior ones are the ones that are not attached to that exterior angle, the angle on the outside. Now you'll notice that the measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 4, okay, they lie on the same line, and here's that side of the triangle. They make a 180 degree relationship. They are supplementary. So that means that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 4 must be 180 degrees. But likewise, the measure of angles 1, 2, and 3 inside the triangle must also be 180 degrees. Well, angles 2 and 3 put together is 110, which means the measure of angle 1 must be 70 in order to make 180 altogether. Now, if the measure of angle 1 is 70, then what does the measure of angle 4 have to be? Well, you would take 180, take away 70, and you would get 110. And we've seen that before because 110 was the total of measure angle 2 and 3 put together. So what we have here is another rule that we can easily follow. The exterior angle of a triangle, in this case that's angle 4, so let me underline that in red, is the angle formed by a side and the extension of an adjacent side. So we extended one side out here, and we're looking at the angle that's outside the triangle side that is extended. And that measure is always equal to the sum of those two remote interior angles. In other words, angle 4 is going to be the sum of the two angles of the triangle that are not attached to it. So angles 2 and 3 are not attached to angle 4, they're non-adjacent, and they form that sum. So the general rule is the measure of an exterior angle is equal to the sum of the measure of the remote interior angles. We're going to go ahead and skip example 3 and that try it and move on to some practice work. Don't forget the rules that are highlighted here in your key concept. First of all, the sum of the measures of the interior angles of a triangle is always 180. The measure of an exterior angle is equal to the sum of the measures of its remote interior angles. So the exterior angle is outside the triangle, and the remote interior angles are inside and not adjacent to the exterior angle. Now let's practice by answering question 7. For the figure shown, find the measure of angle 1. So first of all, angle 1 is what kind of an angle on the triangle? This is what we call an exterior angle. The measure of angle 1 is equal to the sum of its remote interior angles. And which ones are those? Well, if you guessed 59 degrees and 56 degrees, you would be correct. So add up 59 and 56, and that should tell you what the measure of angle 1 is. And you should get 115 degrees. Now it's time for you to try some practice on your own.